I'd like to call this meeting the summer meeting of the Darien TV79 Advisory Board to order. It is 7:39. We have a quorum. We're waiting for a couple of other members that were at the wrong that were they were at the right place, but I didn't correctly well enough communicate that the meeting was virtual. Um, Jim, you want to introduce our two guests?
We have two guests that were here as members of the public right now. Uh, John J.J. Jack Whittier is joining us. He's the bearded gentleman in the middle. He's my backup. He's the acting program director when I'm not available, or I get hit by a bus, and I'm not jumping off of any curbs lately. But Jack runs the show when I'm not available to do it. So he's been a videographer with us for over a year now, very accomplished. So, Jack, good to have you on board to see how this august body operates. Uh, and also importantly, Peter Reardon, who is joining us. He is a candidate for appointment to this advisory board in what I hope will be a smooth approval process through the Board of Selectmen. Peter, do you want to tell us, for the record, just a little bit about your background and why you were seduced into joining us in this little cabal?
Sure. So I have spent where are we 2025? So 40-ish years in the broadcast industry and everything from local PBS station to large broadcasters like Discovery Communications, HBO, those sorts of things. Spent a great deal of time in post-production side of the industry, editing primarily, and currently work for Amazon Web Services in the media, entertainment, games, and sports division as a global strategy leader. So I help customers solve the kinds of problems that we're wrestling with here. So it was strongly suggested to me that Jim, you and I have a conversation about what's going on here and what makes sense. And so I think that just from my background, there's some opportunity for me to at least apply some brain cells and some thinking that I do on a day-to-day basis, and hopefully in a beneficial way to this organization.
Well, Peter has already been tremendously helpful on some of the technology stuff that we're working on. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit as well too. And Al Briganti is joining us. Al, let us know when you're there so I can introduce you to our two guests. He seems there. He is.
Yep. How you doing?
Now, meet Peter Reardon, who is going to be a new appointee to the advisory board,
Perfect.
and Jack J.J. Whittier, who is my number two. He's the backup when I'm not available to run the station.
Wow.
So this is Al Briganti, who's also a member of the advisory board.
Nice to meet you all.
So, with approval, we'll amend the agenda. Dennis is on his way to joining us on Zoom. But so let's jump to the technology portion to discuss how we get TV79 back up on YouTube and what would be the most efficient way to do that. And Jim, you got some new information today
Yeah.
from Castus.
So, for context, the reason we're having this discussion is we suspended our live feed about 2 weeks ago. We've been working with Boxcast very satisfactorily for 5 or 6 years. They did a really nice job of providing us with streaming for 8 hours a night, 4 p.m. to midnight, 7 days a week, for a total of $240 a year. Such a bargain. And obviously, that was not going to last because somebody in accounting took a look at our account and said, no, 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 this is not correct. The new quote that they gave us for the equivalent product was going to be $2,300. And I said, thanks for the memories. That's not in our budget, and pulled the plug. And I've been, as I mentioned to the Board of Selectmen, reporting today at the quarterly department heads meeting. I've had a total of 3 people notice that our live feed was not there, which probably might warrant a larger discussion about our raison d'etre. But in the meantime, Peter turned me on to a technology vendor in Danbury. I think it's called DNR. Is that right? up
That's
there.
it.
And I spoke with the D from DNR, Don. Oh, who's this? Another member of the public has crept into the picture.
Another public comment.
Another Zoom bomb.
This,
Oh, super.
yeah, this
The
is
grandchildren.
this is Connor.
Yeah. Hello, Connor. How are you? How you doing, buddy? So, uh, I spoke with this guy from DNR, and he said he was also recommended to us not only by Peter, but by Horst Tebbe, who is the TV79 program director in Greenwich, and they use him. And they had claimed, and I didn't understand how, we stream 24 hours a day to YouTube, and it's free. And I'm going, how? How does this work? Well, the solution is that they have a $2,000 box that takes the station signal and sends it to YouTube. And I talked to Peter's friend Don, and Don said, "Yeah, we sell that box. It would be an easy solution for you." And just in the course of the conversation, I mentioned we have a Castus server that we record our shows on and we do all the playback on. He said, "That Castus probably will stream right out of the box. You don't need anything else." And Peter and I had gone through the inner workings of Castus, delving deep into the bowels of the electronics. And I think he said he'd noticed that as well, too. Anyhow, I contacted Castus and I said, we have a Castus. We've had it for 5 years. It works great. Does it stream? Does it put out an RTMP stream? And he said, why, yes, as a matter of fact. And I can send you an article on how to set that up. I said, is there any charge? He said, no. It's there already. So, duh, we've been sitting on the technology all this time and didn't even realize it. And I guess Boxcast made it a little bit easier in terms of scheduling, et cetera, et cetera. But Peter has most generously offered to help me and him walk through the inner sanctum of Castus and see if we can set this up. If it's a free solution, I think it's probably worth pursuing. I got feedback from the Board of Selectmen when I shared this piece of bad news today about the lack of live streaming, and the first selectman and a couple others nodded and said, yeah, it'd be nice if we had live again, because sometimes there's meetings and sometimes we want to watch a meeting live. And I said, okay, I get it, so if we can do that, I think, Peter and I will work on that a little bit. And then we could revisit the larger discussion of, where are we going? What's our purpose in life? How are we supposed to be recording? And is it all VOD, video on demand? Is it all streaming? Where's the audience lie? And Mike's going to share some very interesting statistics with you later on, where the audience does seem to be. One other piece of technology news I wanted to share with you is I spoke with Jeff Adams, who is the town IT director, and he said that the new view board technology is going to be installed in room 206 either this Friday or maybe Monday. This is similar to what we have in room 119, which will allow us to do Zoom meetings. Mike, maybe you could explain the technology better because you've seen it in action in room 119.
Yeah, we can do Zoom meetings. 206 is a little bit more complicated because there are a lot more presentations. And if we do a meeting out of 119 with presenters, we would have to move the podium to the back corner of the room so that the camera would pick it up. I don't know until they install it whether 3 cameras in 206, right? Three.
Right.
Man, I don't know how those are going to interact into 206, and or whether or not it will be, and can we switch between cameras on a Zoom feed? So I don't know that part. And we only in 119 there's only that one camera, and it adjusts, and we've got a remote to adjust where it is. I don't know how that's going to work in 206 for a meeting that has presenters. For a meeting that's just by the dais and can go wide and get the back of a presenter or someone doing public comment, that would work. But we just have to, you and JJ would have to play with the shots, just to see what works.
I think it might be, useful for RTM meetings in 206 where they all sit around the big table.
Yeah, and it works,
Uh,
and that works fine.
yeah,
And we've been in every virtually every RTM committee has now has two people trained on how to do it, so that they could to do a hybrid meeting. Um,
that's great.
according to the most recent opinion we've got from FOIA, this Connecticut FOIA, you can do a hybrid meeting for committee members only, and you do not have to make the link available to the public as long as the meeting in the room is available to the public. And so that somewhat limits the concern about Zoom bombers because in theory, you're only sharing it with members of the committee and not the public at large. That's one of the things on the RTM Technology Committee, which I'm also on, is we're working on this summer. We've got a meeting with Kate, not Kate,
Jennifer.
Jen, in a couple of weeks to go over the webinar license and using that to as a better protection against Zoom bombing, where all the committee members would, in essence, be webinar presenters and no one else would be able to turn on their mic without the administrator turning on their microphone. So um, it's a question whether or not they're going to get us another license or we're going to share the RTM license.
Good.
One of the things Carrie and I noticed when we're doing the newsletter, and I heard it on the RTN on the Board of Selectmen department head meeting today, is the gremlin that sneaks into the audio for periods of 30 to 45 seconds to a minute, and then it magically appears and it magically disappears. Um, if we find a less expensive way to do the live, it would be nice to if allocate some dollars to maybe we just need to do some we got to rewire because that wiring's got to be pretty old to get rid of that. It's not a major problem, but Carrie, you would say it happens in almost every meeting in 206 for some period of time.
Yeah, and you're right. It's so weird because it comes up for like 2 minutes and then it goes away, and then sometimes it might come back at the end for a couple of minutes. So it's not consistent, but it's there.
It's a very known problem that one of the challenges is you can hear it on the live feed, you can hear it on the recording, but you can't hear it in the booth as the meeting is being shot. Is that right, Jack? Would you agree?
Yeah, I agree. It's happened more than a couple times,
Yeah.
especially this morning's Board of Ed meeting. Uh, Jim, as you're editing and posting it, you texted me like just earlier today asking about the media or audio issues. So there will be times where it seems fine to me. I'll see the readings. If anything, if I see a little bit of red, I'll turn down the master
Right.
volume or whatever I have to do. But yeah, then I'll watch it on live or after I put in a post, I'm like, wait a minute, I did not hear any of this in the booth. So there's something going on in there
So
that clearly,
I thought it was bad microphones. We replaced all the microphones, the table microphones in 206. I
yep,
think it's something about the audio mixer
I think so
itself.
too. Yeah,
Now, I have spoken with our technology consultant based in Westport, who basically, I won't mention his name here, kind of shrugged his shoulders and said, "It is what it is." And I think Peter and I are going to have another discussion about maybe a fresh look at the wiring of our entire booth. Ironic that we're doing this now because I think somebody with a longer term vision of TV79's future would probably say, rip it all out and start fresh. Let's do a wiring diagram this time. We have no wiring diagram for our booth. The wiring diagram consists of what's inside the head of the person who installed it, who shrugged his shoulders and said, "It is what it is." So yeah, I'm familiar with that. It sounds just like a little more distorted, like a crackly kind of noise like that, and then it goes away. And it's we've not been able to source it. I think it's I don't know a bad capacitor in the mixer. I'm not a technology guy, but we're very familiar with it, unfortunately.
JJ or Jim, can you guys send me a link to one of the meetings that has this in it with an approximate time as to where it happens so I can
Sure.
put my ears on it just out of curiosity?
Sure.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And let's talk, Jack. I don't want to use today's meeting because we had other audio issues, but you and I can find a meeting or two that it pops up in and send it to Peter so we can hear it. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Anything else on the technology side? Any questions?
Nope.
Okay, good.
So let's go back. Let's go back to the founder of TV79 was David Deaver, and he recruited Jim to be the program director. And Dave Deaver had a distinguished career in broadcasting and technology. As we all know, the pictures are nice, but it's the audio that drives usage, because if you can't hear it, it doesn't matter how good the pictures are. You got to have good audio, and TV79 could not have gotten off the if you look at the backgrounds of the other Area 9 representatives on the Regional Cable Commission, they're all from technical backgrounds, because you got to get the audio and the video on the air. He was lucky to recruit Jim, who had a programming background where it's programmed like a television station, but fundamentally everyone else just says, how do we get the meetings on the air so we can see them and hear them? And do you want me to share the screen, or do you want to share your screen to
Well, I'll just summarize it.
okay.
David has had some serious health issues in the past couple of years, and he's not been able to attend the meetings of this body or the Area 9 Cable Council. So he's been replaced. Carrie Wysocki has been appointed to the Area 9 Cable Council as Darian's third representative. And I told Dave he is welcome here anytime. I value his counsel. He's just been in a really bad way, and he's not able to show up and participate. So the board of the first selectman sent him a very nice letter, basically thanking him for all of his service, not just on Area 9, but he was on the Coastal Waters Commission. He was the past Commodore of the Darien Boat Club during recovery from Superstorm Sandy. He was on the St. Luke's Building and Grounds Committee. He helped start the depot. I think he got the caboose for the depot from Victoria Station before it became Balducci's, before it became a car wash. So I actually got him nominated to be a Senior Volunteer of the Year by the Darien Community Association a couple of years ago, and he was unable to even attend that. So he is, we're speaking of him almost in the past tense. He's alive. He's just not terribly well. But I wanted to make sure that he was significantly recognized, because he's the guy that really started this. And he came up to me. I don't know how he found me, but he came up to me and he said, we're going to put the control room in the projector booth. And I went, yeah, that'll sound great. What? You're going to do what? You're going to put a control room in the... Yeah, he'd figured it all out. He got permission. And it was when Yvonne Klein came to office that she embraced the whole idea, and thus was born TV79 and its coverage. So none of us would be here this evening if it was not for Dave Deaver. And I hope he continues to heal and, stays active. He still watches us sometimes. Occasionally I'll get a note from him, I think he's one of the few people left who actually have cable and can watch the signal from Altice, Cablevision, Optimum, because I think everybody else on this body has cut the cord, So thank you, Dave Deaver, for all you've done.
And he's on the standard invitation for every TV79 board meeting,
Right.
as the chair emeritus, or I can't remember what
General Manager Emeritus.
Yeah,
Right.
General Manager Emeritus.
Yeah.
One other technical issue that I forgot to mention, back when we started doing live on YouTube, they had a restriction that you could only go live for 8 hours. Now, if you have more than 50 subscribers and no prohibitions in the previous 90 days, you can go 24/7. So we've got 453 subscribers to the channel. So that what would have been a prohibition before, and also Boxcast had a prohibition of only allowing streaming 8 hours a day. But we do now, with if you're able to work our Castus, we do have the flexibility of being on 24/7 on YouTube.
Great.
So you want to give a quick programming update, Jim?
Uh, I'll let you do the sharing of the audience data, but it's getting quiet. We have like one meeting next week, but we're still well staffed. People are coming and going and traveling to various continents, etc. But the coverage has continued. We haven't missed a beat. We've been doing some outside projects with some of the videographers who like to edit as well too. I have had two how-to videos in mind. One was how to use the Auditorium AV, and that's going to be an explainer video, not only for our staff, but more for anybody that's going to be chairing a meeting in the auditorium. How to turn it on, how to get the screen to drop, how to get the projector turned on. And it's going to teach people how to push the little red button on the microphone base so their microphone is turned on, so they can actually be heard. The other explainer is going to be for staff, and that's how to use the audio mixer with our portable camera. It's a lot of cables and a lot of confusion, but we're going to produce a very simple step-by-step so anybody can watch that video and go in and do a portable camera shoot using the audio mixer, which holds, Jack, it'll take up to 5, 6 mics, is it?
6. Yeah.
6 microphones. Okay.
Mhm.
So, even the, larger police commissions and things like that, we have plenty mic capacity on that. Oh yeah, and then we're thinking about doing a couple of special uh, videos just for kind of community interest. Um, the history and the background on the murals inside of Darien Town Hall. I thought that might be interesting. It's nice evergreen kind of feature as well too. I'm trying to get more short form programming because that loads and is well received on Instagram. It's good for brand recognition. People know that we're out there, even if it's just a promo or a bumper or an in memoriam. The in memoriam series, our obituaries, if you will, Brianna produces every week, and tremendous response to that. So, that's going as well too. They Ask the First Selectman. We cranked out 3 just last week. I'm kind of piecemealing them out because it's very quiet now and there's not much to talk about otherwise. This week's is an update on the Darien train station reconstruction. Last week's was an update on construction at Great Island. And we have one more on how to sign up for the new alert system because Code Red Alert is bye-bye. And this was inspired by you were out of town, Mike, fortunately, but we were having an impending flood last week. And I was kind of like, where do I turn? I haven't received an alert. There's no code red. How am I supposed to find anything? And I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do? Turn on WICC? No, WGCH? I don't think they got anyone working in the news department. I'll turn on News 12. Well, forget it. News 12, they're showing the same 6 hours they taped in Secaucus yesterday afternoon. So it was out of necessity that I discovered that we have a new alert system. And you're not grandfathered in if you signed up for Code Red. And it's not intuitive how to sign up for this new thing called Alert 06820. So the first selectman and I made a video about that and ran it past the director of emergency planning, Mark McEwen, and he went, "Yeah, that's good. Thanks for doing that." Well, think of us next time you're doing a major change like this, and we'll help you out, because getting the word out is going to be half the battle. People are going to, the sign up rate is not huge. Again, it's the summer. people are worried more about where they're going to get a lobster roll for dinner, right, Carrie? As opposed to what's going to happen when the floods come back to Darien. But mark my words, they will. So that's all we're doing. And we're plodding along with evergreens and a summer festival of reruns on some of our shows.
Let's get into then. I'm going to do I don't know, Jim, do you have you have your report that you gave to the board of
Yeah.
selectmen with the charts in it. I'll explain what the charts say, which will lead into our marketing discussion. But we went back and we started the Best of TV79 newsletter in late February. So we went back and compared viewership from February through the end of June 2024, comparing it to 2025. And the results were interesting. We don't, but the Best TV79 newsletter, Jim, the program guide gets many more clicks than the Best of TV79 newsletter, even though we give the links. We'll have maybe 5% clicks. But interestingly, viewership was up 112% from March 1st through the end of June 2025 versus 2024. Now, remember that our mission for TV79, as we talk about in the newsletter, is to have a civically aware population who can actively participate in democracy because they have the information they need. And it was interesting in comparing the shows, ChatGPT's interpretation. Now, ChatGPT doesn't know what our mission statement is, but if you want to scroll down, Jim,
Mm-hmm.
in 2024, the highest viewed programmings were the Police Commission and the Police Blotter. And what ChatGPT noticed in its analysis is that our viewership came from watching the Board of Selectmen, Planning and Zoning, Board of Finance, RTM Finance and Budget, and GIAC, which suggests that not only did our viewership go up 112%, but there was more significant viewing of meetings dealing with corporate governance, which is what the mission was when we started the newsletter, to give people easier access to information so that they could make better decisions as citizens. So now that's everything that's in there, Jim. The next thing is the two newsletters are literally within decimal points of each other in being opened. Carrie and I had two goals over the last 3 weeks: is to reach 60% of opens on the first mailing that goes out at 10:30 on Saturday morning, and that cumulatively get to 80% of the 1,209 or 6 or whatever who are subscribed. And so this week we hit the 60.1% for open on the first mailing, and we're at 79.2% for the total newsletter. So among the people in the who are subscribers, and obviously those are the people who are most interested in what's going on in town because they've taken the time to subscribe to the newsletter, and they get it. They get 2 newsletters a week, or 4 if they don't open the first one. How do we grow that denominator? And so what we wanted to do is spend 10 or 15 minutes brainstorming ideas that you guys might have on how we can grow the denominator to get it beyond the 1,200. We've got one thing we've talked about, and we just have to figure out how to do is over time. I mean, it's amazing that Jim has created a newsletter with 1,200 subscribers. But over time, there have been, over the last, I don't know, 5 years, there have been 600 people who have unsubscribed over the how long have you been, when did you start the program guide newsletter?
Oh, 5, 6 years ago, maybe.
So one is to remarket to them, and MailChimp only allows you to do it once. So I really got to talk to somebody at MailChimp because you only get one turn at bat, and they don't allow you to ever do it again.
Yeah,
To
and you can't sign people up who've already canceled. I
uh,
can't. I mean, I would try, but no.
Yeah, so that's one a method to go back to past subscribers, which is in theory, what cable operators do is, it's easier to get a former than a never. Um, but then what other ideas is Marley Hayes does the newsletter every Friday that comes out at 6 o'clock. And every other week, she's nice enough we can give her a URL that by Friday morning at 9, where we're still editing and adding things, but the URL automatically updates. So if you happen to look at the newsletter that she sent out last week at 6, there were some changes made by Saturday when it was sent out. But Jim has had some conversations with First Selectman Zagrodsky about perhaps using that email list that they have to market to. And I don't know how many names she's got, but I think she's got a ton. Because within the town, public Parks and Rec has their own email list. The town has its email list. We have our email list.
Probably a parking mailing list.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that Jim and I are taking that on with the first selectman because he's ultimately the one who controls that database. What other ideas, have you seen, or ideas that you guys might have that, from a marketing standpoint, would help us drive new subscribers? So it's different than driving viewership. It's driving new subscribers that we then hope will drive new viewership.
Would ask the first selectman, would he ever do something for us?
Yeah,
Sure. I think you would.
Jim's had some preliminary conversations with John about it.
I
Yeah.
mean, those short videos are really great, so maybe, he could just do one talking about the newsletter.
Yeah, I can do that. I mean, he already offered basically his entire newsletter because he does the first
Right.
selectman newsletter, alternate weeks with the town newsletter.
Right.
There's not a lot he's got to write about over the course of the summer, and he said he'd be happy to just kind of do a full, hey, TV79 in memoriam, ask the first selectman, all the meetings, best of, give us a chance to highlight everything.
I'd want to do it closer to September because
Yeah.
the newsletter is going to be pretty slim pickings for the month of August after this week.
I don't know what their click-through rate is, but it ain't 60% like ours is.
Yeah,
And it's not an opt-in mailing list either that they use. So it may be big, but
yeah. So
ours is opt-in.
yeah. It isn't an opt-in. It was automatically.
You could join it, but I don't think it was opt-in. If it's using Parks and Rec
You have
people
to have a way to unsubscribe. I'll have to take a look because they
Yeah.
use Constant Contact
Yeah, they do.
as their vendor. All right, so that's one. Anybody else have any? Jim and I have spent money out of I did spend $18 on Facebook, and did dramatically increase the number of impressions for that week, but it did not translate into any new subscribers.
Hmm.
Um,
Thank you, Facebook.
Yeah, which I was surprised. So it went from an average of 16 to 120 when I spent $18 just to go to people in Darien, geofence to just Darien, but there was not one increase in a new subscriber. So that didn't work.
So, I guess that's a question. Would you want to spend any money? Is there any money in the budget so we could think about things that way, like small postcards, small mailers, or cheap flyers, or something that actually goes to people's homes?
No, there's no money in the budget. We have a total of I don't know, it's like $150 a year for operating supplies. However, the first selectman was so distraught over the lack of our live feed these days. He basically said, if it's a question of money, you come talk to me.
Hmm.
So he may have some discretionary funds. We'll talk about the budget in a moment and how bad I am at math. But we didn't ask for any money to do extra marketing. We've always kind of operated on the principle of this cheap Scott. Let's do it for free or let's do it for as little as we can.
Yeah.
Miss Wysocki was generous enough to put her talents to creating a beautiful flyer, a one page that describes TV79 that sits in a wonderful decorative rack right underneath the monitor as you walk inside town hall. And I think there are still copies there waiting to be picked up by people who are curious about it.
Yeah, I saw one
You know,
today.
good. I think, yeah, sorry, you had to make that trip. There it is. He's got it beautifully. Thank you. The question is, why would somebody want to sign up? What's the motivation for them to sign up? Everything we've got is available on video on demand. What's the value added that they're going to get by getting one or two more pieces of email that they may or may not want? Because, we get two or three unsubscribes every week and maybe one or two new subscriptions. It'd be great to find out who the new subscribers are and maybe ask them, why did you sign up? I kind of know why the people unsubscribed, and I always take it personally when it's an email address I recognize. Oh, I'm going to have to talk to him about that. He can't unsubscribe to this newsletter. But I think the question is, if it's opt in, why should they opt in? What are we giving them that somehow has some value to them? Clearly, the best of newsletter provides a lot of value, even though it may not be adding to, necessarily a lot of clicks right now. And the program guide, I think, has a lot of response because it is the most definitive listing of upcoming meetings in the week ahead. It is more accurate than the town's own web calendar because I personally check everything that's on the town web calendar and find out that a lot of the meetings that are there have been canceled or moved or they're not in room 119 anymore. Sorry, Al. They're all going to be done on Zoom. So I think that's one of the reasons people open it up the program guide because it's the definitive curated list. But what else could we give them? What do they want? What do they want from us?
We did, when I first came on the RTM District 2, we did a district caucus where we sent, and this was before they had email addresses for anybody. And so the town clerk gave us the voter registration lists that we geofenced for District 2. And we had to produce the postcards, but fortunately we had someone in our district, on our RTM district that knew how to do that. So she was able to merge the database and create the postcards. And the town paid for all of it, and it ended up costing $2,000 just for one district because the first class stamp just went up to 78 cents. I don't know what third class mail is, but it wasn't cheap. And I said, see, that's why we need people's email addresses so that we can email them and not have to send them a postcard. But again, that's a strategy, again, as we're in such a interesting time for journalism. And I was listening to a podcast last night that reiterated how important local is because people still have confidence in their local governments. And so, the worst that can happen is the town says no, but we can come to them with their different ideas and what the potential costs would be. And they can always say no, but they might say yes.
We could also piggyback on mailings that are done by Parks and Rec or parking permits.
Mhm.
I mean, there are other people that are stuffing stuff in envelopes. And if we had just like a small card that we could put in there as well too, with information and maybe a QR code and the website address, we could ride on somebody else's dime.
Yeah.
Great idea.
So I'll write up the ideas that we've got, and then anybody want to, Peter, you're going to be on our technology subcommittee. Al, you want to be on the marketing
Sure.
subcommittee?
Yeah,
Carrie's doing the newsletter. But sit down and come up with a number of ideas. We'll figure out what the budget is and take it to the first selectman and see what he's got to say.
Can I just ask a question about the two number matrices that you're talking about? Viewership as opposed to newsletter subscriptions. How is viewership registered? Is YouTube able to determine that?
They don't give you any. You can go to our YouTube site and see how many people viewed the video, and they give you data on what they watched and how long they watched it. And Vimeo you can too. It's slightly more complicated.
So when you say we're up 112%,
that was just on the YouTube on demand channel. That didn't take into account Vimeo. We were up 112% on the YouTube channel. So
okay.
We're getting residual viewing of whether or not people are, our goal isn't clicks. Our goal is to give them information, a scanned read, so that they know a little bit about what went on in town, that there's nothing major that happened in town that TV79 covered. And I underline TV79 covered because, there was a big story about Darien this week out of the police. There was a press release from the police department that if they mention it in the police commission meeting, we'll put it on, but it wasn't on TV79, so it didn't go in the newsletter. And so the clicks, we're not trying to sell anything. So clicks are important if you're trying to sell something,
So how many people, based on those, based on what YouTube is telling us, how many people are watching those on demand? What is the audience for the on demand on YouTube?
What's the potential of it, or what is it?
What is it?
I could go into.
Depends on the video.
It depends on
what would be the maximum that they a couple of hundred
for a big meeting? Yeah, a couple of hundred. A couple
And
hundred.
the numbers are much bigger on YouTube than they are on Vimeo. And those
The search-
Vimeo
the
numbers
search is
include
better.
people that come to us through our own website as well too, which is why I think we need to be back streaming live on YouTube as well too. It is, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, YouTube is now the most watched over the top streaming channel in the United States, bigger than Netflix.
Yes, the streaming
bigger
wars.
than
The streaming
bigger
wars.
than broadcast.
Yeah.
Bigger than broadcast. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, you would know better than me, but the streaming wars are now YouTube and Netflix and maybe Amazon Prime, but then everybody else is going to be a 5% player. And
No comment on Amazon Prime.
And Peacock's raising the prices to $16.
Yeah, right.
Everybody's raising their prices.
Yeah, but
but yeah,
$16
you've got the read right on YouTube. They are by far the most substantial platform for consumption.
Right.
So the only hard number on gauging interest, is the newsletter subscriptions.
Oh, and the open rate in the newsletters.
The open rate, yeah.
The open rate.
So last week, 912 of 1,206 opened the best of newsletter. 80% opened either the newsletter that went out Saturday morning, or if they didn't open it Saturday morning, it's resent at 1:30 on Sunday. Another 20%, 60% opened the first one, and 20% of the 600 people that didn't open the first one opened the second one. So cumulatively, we did just on 79%, which is remarkable because MailChimp says if you get 40%, it's remarkable. And both of our newsletters, if you look at week to week, both newsletters, they're within 1 or 2 percentage points of each other. So there's a lot of interest in both because they serve different needs. The number of shows that I've watched that I've opened Jim newsletter and saw who was speaking at the Greenwich Men's Association, because they have meetings all summer, and they've and or other long form content that he's found that's of civic interest. It's as good as C-SPAN on the weekend.
Well, am I being Pollyannish? But that's not a bad number for a town the size of ours to have an audience, a possible audience of 900 people.
Yeah, and that's why if we can grow the denominator and get 40% of those going the denominator, we can go beyond the 1,200. That I'd love to be able to well, I don't know what the town does, but if we could increase by 1,000 people who are subscribing to the newsletter, and we pick up 50% of those because they might not be as interested because but so we can grow. I see the numbers of Darien Mom's Facebook page, and there's what's the other Facebook, it's local politics.
Up
Yeah,
next,
they're in local politics.
next door, Darien.
Yeah, and our association's got a chat, a WhatsApp that they share looking for babysitters and plumbers.
Okay.
And the Board of Education regularly gets 400 views
Yeah.
to a meeting on their YouTube channel. And when it's live, they did a live meeting today early in the morning. I didn't even know it was coming up. If it's a live meeting in the evening and it's a high stakes issue, they will have that many people watching live on YouTube or
Mhm.
on Zoom as well too. So I want to get those people. I want the Board of Ed's mailing list. I want those parents to go beyond just, you know, meet the new acting superintendent and we're going to talk about curriculum, because our stuff is touching their lives as well too. But it's like people joining the RTM. People don't join the RTM until there's a big controversial issue. And now we've got one coming up with, okay, what are we going to do with Great Island? We've had the recommendation, the consultants have weighed in. Now the Board of Selectmen is going to have to go through a whole decision process that I think people will be very interested in and will follow. So we can, we throw a spotlight on that as well too.
How about some teasing then? Earlier in the week, we get a heads up of a great headline, we start teasing it somehow.
Yeah.
Or at the end of last week's newsletter, we know a nugget of something, like you just said, Great Island's having their final meeting on X, Y, and Z. Like we need teasers so people.
That's a great idea. I think Great Island's the number one headline usually.
Yeah.
But I think affordable housing is going to be a very big headline.
Yeah, we've done it twice. We put out a special edition on a Tuesday when the governor vetoed the housing bill.
Right.
And then we did it in the last week, or is it in this? Yeah, in last week's, previewing that the meeting to finalize the master plan is going to be Wednesday with a link to it. But that we did put out a special edition when the governor vetoed the housing bill, because that was really big news. But I've thought about more of when something happens, again, it's the challenge of abusing the privilege of sending someone an email. But if something, I thought the housing bill, and Jim had already was way ahead of me, and he already had the video from the governor's news conference.
Thank you,
that,
CTN.
was there. I mean, I had watched it, but I couldn't find it posted anywhere. I watched it on the Connecticut CT news, the TV79 for the state, and was able to watch it on the streaming, but I couldn't find it on demand, and Jim had it on demand, which is what we needed. And, I could do 4 or 5 bullets on what the governor said, and we sent it out, and it got the same degree of opens as our regular newsletters did. So there was an appetite for the late breaking information.
Maybe we could, without doing a special mailing, you could put a little paragraph at the end of the best of, kind of like looking at the week ahead, coming up this week. It's, we sometimes don't have an agenda for some of these meetings, so it's going to be a little subjective with us saying, watch for the Board of Selectmen to now take up the issues of what the future of Great Island is going to be, or Keep an eye on the sewer commission because you may have to pay to get your sump pump connected to the outside, and that's otherwise you're going to be paying a $250 fine.
We've been hesitant to do that because that's your niche. You're the
Yeah,
one, you've got because we use your schedule. We cut and paste
maybe we
all
should
your
combine the two newsletters into one.
I was
Should we
thinking
do
that.
recap videos instead?
pardon me?
I'm sorry.
Sorry, I don't mean to jump on anyone. Okay, you go first. Sorry.
No, no, I was thinking that's a great idea about combining it because sometimes people don't want more emails.
Right.
Well, we're gonna, this week we're changing and it's still gonna come from DarianTV79.com, but it's gonna come from Carrie and me rather than Jim. So that now there's a plus and a minus to that. The minus is who are they? I recognize Jim Cameron's name. That's the downside. Because it's a tremendous brand awareness with a trusted brand that they know they're going to get meaningful information of
Well,
Jim.
then you guys got to introduce yourself, and because we get emails every week from somebody saying, "Love the best of newsletter," and I always write back to them, and I copy you two, and I go, "Not me. I can't take credit for that.
We
It's
had it, we had
Mike
it, we
and
had
it's
it, we had
Carrie."
we added our names, I don't know, a month ago.
Yeah,
But
but now
so
they
there,
don't. Now they should know who you are.
So Mike, we're going to do a promotional tour, you and me,
yeah,
right?
right.
Door to
Yes.
door.
So,
Yeah.
so the downside is I can see a drop off because they don't recognize our names and they don't open up and up. The plus side is it will differentiate the two, but
Right.
I hesitate. Our goal and we look at the MailChimp of that we want the newsletter. How long does it take to scan this newsletter? And it says it should take 3 minutes and 45 seconds to scan this newsletter. And so I'd be hesitant to combine it because Jim's got a whole, here's your TV guide schedule for this week, would make it then become a 7-minute newsletter. And I think we get fatigue. Our whole mission is scannability, scannability for a quick read.
Here's an idea. When I list the shows that we've covered, so it'll say Board of Selectmen, quarterly department heads, agenda, video, and the length of it as well too. We could add a third hyperlink that takes you to the best of analysis of that meeting.
We only create one URL for the whole thing. You would literally have to create a URL for every.
Well, you could do that. I mean, it would, take it to, have it say AI or, best of or highlights or something like that. And you would open up the whole best of newsletter
I'd have to see how
and then
much.
you'd find your meeting.
I'd have to see how much time that would take in order to create a separate URL for each meeting.
No, I don't just do one for the whole newsletter. Anyhow, listen, I want the rest of you guys on this board to realize all the work that Mike and Carrie have put into this. This started as an experiment during the budget cycle, and I think Mike said originally, "I'll do it if it doesn't take more than 2 hours." I mean, if he doesn't spend 10 hours doing this every week, I'd be surprised. So thank you, Mike, because you have really created a vehicle to help expand our audience and make our programming that much more accessible.
Well, Carrie and I do it together. AI does help a lot. It's been fun.
I know, but
It's fun doing the
It's Mike.
but it's
don't
also
be
fun.
shy.
No, but it's fun learning about AI.
Yeah,
We have learned a ton about how AI works and how you communicate and how the prompts and what residual memory is and I couldn't have learned that on my own, to say, well, I want to learn about it. It's learning by doing, by making
right.
mistakes. And it gets easier every week as ChatGPT gets smarter and we get smarter in asking it the right questions. Because if you don't ask it the right question, it'll give you the answer to the question you ask. But if you don't are very specific in the question you ask, you're lucky to get the right answer.
I do have a couple of ideas if you don't mind me pitching in.
Yeah, no.
This is more Jim. And actually, Jim and Mike were in this meeting we did last month. It was like our own staff meeting on Zoom. And one thing that Jim and I, or at least I've started doing, I don't know if Jim's done it too, was at the end of every meeting video that we post on the website, on YouTube, something I pitched that we're doing now is we're actually adding a closing credit slide. So what that means is at the very end of the meeting, after it say, "All right, thank you, Channel 79, thank you for tuning in," whoever, you'll see a fade to black, and you'll see a slide in gray that'll read the videographer's name, and then it'll say like, for more information or more questions, go. And there's like an email that goes, I believe it's the TV79
Yep.
emails. Is that
Email
correct?
address. Right. Yep.
So we're starting to do that, and that's mostly because I think, again, just me personally, so this can go on record or off record at this point. Videographers, I think we should be more recognized for our work. So when we put in posts, when I help out Jim with some edits, I'll add in the title, our AI summary, and all that. But I think very selfishly, I might add in, oh, Brianna did Sewer Commission, or oh, so and so, John Doe was a videographer. That's like the third edit for that. So I think that's something that we should start doing, Jim. You and I is start more recognizable edits, or at least adding more recognition to our videographers at the end of each meeting video. And the second idea I have is sort of related to recaps, like Best of 79, is what if we did like recap videos with the newsletter? Like what if we create little compilations of the highlights of each meeting, like the biggest headlines, and we combine that as a recap of the week. Like here's what you missed, and I'll show this timestamp from this meeting. Uh, I think it's something that people would like to have rather than just read the headline. So,
Or if we really had ambition and unlimited budget, we could create a highlights reel where we would
yes,
actually
yeah,
go and take the video clips of those highlights of each meeting and
mhm,
put it together as a montage.
exactly.
That's a lot of work, and
Yes,
we got budget issues, but that would be nice. That would be a nice show, but that would
It
take
would be
a while.
interesting to see, and JJ, maybe we'll talk where you could take the links on a Best of TV79 newsletter, because those are the links to the key parts of that headline.
Right.
To
mhm,
see how long it would take to click on those links, and create a 15-minute, 20-minute. One of the things that I tried but I never did on YouTube is, you can make a podcast of every video. Now, every podcast is now on YouTube. YouTube allows
mhm,
you to make podcasts of
mhm,
every video. And I played with that for a little while, but never, I never did anything with it. But maybe JJ, we sit down and go in the newsletter. You can see the links and experiment to say, from if this were a job for a videographer, because this is a job at every television station, there are people who do this kind of work. So it's good training for, future jobs of how to, do headlines of, what would it take, and
Heck, will do it pro bono.
could it be a,
Good training.
could it be a
yep,
Looks great on
videographer?
the resume.
It could be a videographer learning exercise.
Yeah.
Because when they get, as Al will tell you, when you get to the first TV station, if you come in and you already know how to do that, you're one step ahead of the person who's got to be trained on how to do it.
Right.
mhm,
Let me toss in one other piece of news which may complicate all of this as well too, and that is that the Area 9 Cable Council, on which I and Mike and Carrie serve, representing the town, uh, is following everything that PURA, the Public Utilities, the Hartford committee that monitors all utilities in the state, including cable TV. Uh, they received a letter from Altice just kind of giving them a heads up. Hey, we're going to move our channels around, and we think we're going to move the government and the education and the public access channels. And alarm bells went off in my mind because TV79 might not be TV79 anymore. It might be TV43. Who knows? So the chairman of Area 9 Cable Council has sent a letter to Altice and will appeal to PURA, P-U-R-A, if necessary, to make sure that we're involved in all of this, because this would be a major, cluster, for a lot of stations that have put their identity into their channel location. Yeah, I mean, we're TV79 to the handful of people that still watch us on cable. but we're still TV79 to people who watch us on YouTube and everywhere else. It's,
We just
if we have to
rebrand.
rebrand
We're just Darien
as
TV.
It
Darien
may not be
TV,
a bad thing though, Jim,
could be,
to rebrand. I
Yeah.
think I actually could make an argument that the idea of TV, if nobody's watching on cable, by the way, I still am, okay.
Oh, good. I'll know who to call now.
Yeah.
Quality control.
How many non-digital we've got have they digitized the picture yet, or is it still in a
Well, I
school
still
doc?
have, they wanted to upgrade, and I said no. I don't want to have to learn how to operate my television one more time. Okay. But I think the point is that we made the marketing committee or all of this, the whole group, may be looking for a new brand, and that might not be a bad thing.
Well, if it's forced upon us, we will embrace the idea. We have no choice. But if
Well,
we have some choice, I don't think they're going to. The educational station is 78 in all of the towns. The government station is 79 in all of the towns. The public access station, the P from PEG, PEG, is down in the 50s somewhere. I don't have cable, so I don't know if they wanted to move that up adjacent to us and cluster all these little weird local programming together in one place. That's cool, but please don't move us off of 79. If they do, we'll make lemonade out of lemons, Al, and I'll look forward to your guidance. I mean, I've already thought of some names as well too, but I want to kind of like we'll get the facts on what this is going to be before they pull the trigger on any of that.
one other thing before we adjourn, Jim and I had this conversation when we were setting the agenda, and then the circumstances changed since then. So we wanted to update you on what the issue was, what we were going to bring to you tonight, and how things have changed, and what our current thinking is to see if you would agree. And that is, we have a quiet period for 60 days before an election where no town official can be on TV79 unless it is a regularly scheduled committee meeting. And our first selectman is up for reelection this year, and he does ask the first selectman, and he does the first selectman reports, which are not official town meetings. It's wonderful that he creates these great television because they're wonderful ways to communicate. But since we had that discussion, that the Democratic Town Committee is not putting up anyone to run against him for first selectman, so he is now running unopposed. So Jim and my points of view is that quiet period does not apply to him in this election cycle because he's running unopposed, and thus we don't have to potentially make any changes to ask the first selectman or the first selectman report. Anybody have any comment?
He's running unopposed so far. There is the chance for people to petition their way onto the ballot as independent candidates, unaffiliated candidates, I think until around Labor Day. I have to check with Krista, the town clerk, but there may still be a third party candidate, even though the Democrats are not running anybody. All of the slates, Board of Education, P&Z, all of the elected boards, commissions, are unopposed. So the people that have been nominated by the RTC and the DTC are automatically elected. There are no contested races, with the exception of RTM, where we are still scraping together bodies to try and fill the 100 seats on that body. The town clerk said that the half of the RTM that's up for reelection, the people have to self-nominate, and it's trickling in. Trickling in. We had the last RTM meeting, I think we had 67 out of 100 people show up.
So
So that's
it
the only
changes-
interesting race, if there is
Yeah,
one.
so if someone does register and there is then we'll revisit, with you, the decision of whether or not ask the first selectman, which is like a call-in show. It's going to be interesting. The first selectman of Greenwich has a call-in show every Friday, and he's up for reelection too. So I'll be interested to find out
Hmm.
what they do with in terms of what their policy might or might not be. But so anybody disagree that if he's running unopposed, there shouldn't be any change? If he does have we'll revisit it if someone does pop up as an independent to run for first selectman. We'll revisit that and whether or not those two shows are not part of the policy, the quiet
You know,
period.
there's the reality too that depending on how this piece of legislation is written, they can still be produced and he can still distribute through his social media channels.
Right,
They just can't be on
right.
TV79.
And
Can still be on YouTube.
it's our policy. It's not a state policy. It's
Yeah,
steering
okay.
79's policy. And you're right.
But it's
He could create, and we don't. Jim does create the Ask the First Selectman. He creates the First Selectman reports himself.
yeah,
So he could continue to do the First Selectman reports and distribute them through his newsletter if he had an opponent, and we just wouldn't put it on TV79. Ask the First Selectman is kind of a joint venture.
yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And then you stick him in the archive and when the election is clear, then you can pull him out and you've got some evergreen stuff to
I
publish.
tell you, it's sure saved Fourth of July
I
newsletter.
like that.
You know,
I
I
like
thought
that.
Carrie and I thought we had the 4th of July off, and then suddenly there were 5 Ask the First Selectmans. It was
They
great.
were good though. They were good.
They
Yeah,
were
So
good. They
it
were
brought
good.
back
Yeah.
it brought back a lot of memories from filling holiday periods at all news radio stations and television stations where the
Well,
market might not be open, but you were still on the air.
and some of those questions in those 5 Ask the First Selectments were actually submitted by real people,
Yeah.
aside from myself. I've been known to kind of flesh out the taping sessions by posing a question or two myself, but yeah, let's just wait and see. We have to get the item number 7 in the agenda
Okay.
because I have to do a mea culpa before we adjourn. Budget update. Uh, let's just say that we spent more money on camera operators than we had budgeted last year, and not by a little bit, but by about 14%. That was exuberance on my part doing some special projects, and we're not going to be much better off this year. We do have a fair amount of money for videographers that came to us from Area 9 Cable Council grants that we can use to make up for the difference. And my attitude has always been to not come in and ask for a lot more money to get by with what we've got. The Cameron family motto is use it up, wear it out, make do without, and do it on the cheap if you can. So I I think the other problem was that we gave all the camera operators a raise this year. They're now getting $35 an hour with a 2-hour minimum. And a lot of these meetings are nowhere near an hour, let alone an hour and a half. And I think we may have to, if we can't move some of these, RTM committee meetings to a Zoom platform using these new view boards, we may have to come back and, sorry, Jack, we may have to reevaluate the pay levels for the videographers. I want to take care of my people, but I also want to make sure that we don't blow through a budget like we did this year. So that's on me. I not so good with the math, but the finance director now has to keep an eye on me as the fiscal year progresses. Any
Anybody else have
questions?
anything for the
well, do you have any say in that, Jim? If trying to get people to move their meetings if they want to be covered so that the camera operators will, can work 2 to 4 hours or
Well, I mean, if there's an RTM committee that's going to be meeting in one of the rooms where we have the view boards that can do a Zoom component to a meeting,
yeah,
we'll let Zoom cover the meeting instead of assigning a camera operator to
right,
sit in there. And Zoom meetings are free for us.
right.
And that leaves us money that we can then spend on special projects and, short form videos and other, kind of artistic achievements, because it's going to be a boring conversation watching an RTM committee, whether it's 3 cameras in room 206 or one Zoom camera that's kind of following around where the voice is coming from. It's more, and Peter and I can talk about this later because we've got, we have to indoctrinate him as to why we do some of this stuff. It's more, we're the television station of record. What happened in the Public Works Committee meeting? Don't look at the meeting minutes, look at the video from TV79. And so people rely on us. Even the people that are the secretaries of these boards and commissions rely on our coverage to put together their own meeting minutes afterwards. So we got to cover it just to have a record of what it was.
Well, I was just
And we're a
thinking,
lot more timely.
I was just thinking the ones that need videographers, we stack them up, we run those meetings, we say, if you want to have your meeting covered, then these are the dates and the nights available. Rather than taking money away from people you've hired, we try and,
We don't get to determine when the meetings are held.
no.
No.
Okay.
They all have their own kind of rotation.
Yeah.
Public Works meets on a Thursday night. F&B meets on a Tuesday night.
But at least all their meetings are virtual.
Yeah, they're all virtual. I think we may find more people going back to virtual. I don't think there's anything wrong with a well-shot Zoom meeting. I mean, it's basically talking heads, whether it's, one camera or 3. And as long as the microphones are good and you can hear what people are saying, their microphones are better than ours, in terms of we don't have Zoom doesn't have the buzz problem that we do, undiagnosable as it is.
So Al, I apologize for not being clear in the directions that we were not going to be meeting in 119. I apologize. That's my fault. But we will meet in 119 for the October meeting, which is the same night as we always have it the same night. So Jim doesn't have to prepare 2 reports. And the next meeting is October 21st. The next meeting I think is October 21st, but I'll put it in I'll do the minutes for this meeting off our ChatGPT summary, and I'll put in what the date of the next meeting is.
Great.
And that's going to be town hall, right?
That will be at 119 in town.
We promise.
The reason I moved it for October is because I'm going to be away. But anyway, I'll let you know what the next meeting is.
Okay.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? Well, JJ, you're not on a committee, but you can't vote to adjourn. Al. Good. Well, thank you all. Al and Jim will find a time before the next meeting to get together, in August sometime to talk about a marketing plan and what's our ask from people who control various mailing lists. And then, if we got permission to send an email, what would we put in that email to send them? And that'll be a good project to work on. So JJ, thank you for joining us. Peter, I hope you get through the Board of Selectmen interview process before our next meeting. I'm sure you will, but we're then looking forward to getting back on YouTube full time with our live feed.
Thank you. I'm worried about that gauntlet, but I think it'll be all right.
I think you'll be all right. I think you've solved a bigger problem. No 4-page single-spaced memos for the meeting.
There you go.
Do they still have that policy at Amazon, 4-page single-space before every meeting?
We have 2 versions. There's a 2-pager and a 6-pager, and that does not count appendices. So a 6-pager can easily be a 40 or 50-page document.
Single-space.
And you read it at the beginning of the meeting. You don't pre-read. It's not given to you until you walk in the door or log on. It's fascinating.
Single-spaced.
Yep.
Single-spaced.
Yep.
Little corporate culture to talk about
with line numbers, so you can say on line 73 you said X. What do you mean? It's crazy, but it works.
Yeah, it works.
A vote to adjourn?
Yeah, have a wonderful summer, everybody, and I'll get the minutes out in the next couple of days.
Take care, guys.
Thanks,
See you
Mike.
later. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Thank you.